so much fun when you get to work with other actors and get to work off each other, as opposed to either working, hearing it or not having the person that you're working with.
Exactly, fully agree. It was so much fun. When you're in a booth with other actors, you're just able to like bounce off of each other. Of course, very nerve-wracking because I'm coming into a world that I'm not aware of, and also every cast member really had their character down, and each one is so distinct. I wanted to make sure that what I was bringing, one, was an addition, and two, that it fit the tone of what was already there. But what's so amazing about Indira is she does add, like you're saying, this fresh perspective, and I think it was nice to kind of lean into maybe my lack of knowledge on some things, and kind of embrace that as something that was going to set me apart or set Indira apart from the other Slayers, kind of adding just like this more fresh perspective on things. So that was one of those, and also having conversations with Amber and Christopher and Casey was so helpful. They were so welcoming and generous from the very beginning, and it really meant a lot to me to be able to work with them.
First of all, I think it's interesting. I have a really strong theater background, and I feel like when you've done either series television or a long run of a play or multiple plays where you play a character and you inhabit a character for a long time, there's something where it's still in you. So obviously I don't walk around like Drusilla, that would be scary. But she is surprisingly easy to access. And so it is sort of like slipping into a comfortable old shoe that you're like, oh yeah, I know her. What is interesting about the material is that she is not subservient. She has an autonomy, and that she isn't an appendage to somebody else, but she does drive a lot of the action, and so that was a lot of interest. Obviously, each one has its own technique and craft. For instance, if you're doing a close-up, it's very different than your whole body being on stage and all of that stuff. But for me, it's really about having a well-rounded character and inhabiting that, and then the vocals will reflect that, and the character making as much nuance and character development that will come through on the voice. I mean, some of the things that are a little bit different technically is if you're doing a romantic scene, you're basically kissing your own hand, which is very different. And and it's kind of funny to go, oh, I'm making these sounds, these sort of orgasmic sounds by seeing your partner across the room, all of that stuff, and sort of figuring out, like, is that too much? Is that right? And some of that is just technically different, but also fun. And that was kind of a funny thing, because they'd be like, oh, that's really hot. Oh, is it too hot? Or what line are we striking here? So, yeah.
That's so funny. It's what Juliet was saying, it's kind of hard to categorize the different sectors of acting or ways of doing it, but I will say with audio you do, at least for me, because like my character obviously wasn't established in terms of like a look per se.
Of course, yeah.
So a lot of the backstory and things like that came from just my imagination, which of course you're gonna have to use if it's audio. But it is like taking everything you would use on camera and just like amplifying it a bit more so that it is able to translate. Even some of the fighting, and like you were saying, more of the intimate scenes can sometimes be even more amplified just to make sure it sounds natural via audio.
We did have a moment there where I remember we were doing a scene, and then I remember Chris and Amber saying, oh, maybe we should do that one a little less sexual. And I said, oh, sexual is not what I was going by. Drusilla is so hypersexualized. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not appropriate, at all. But it's funny because Drusilla has that, like, everything she does is very sensual, and she has that sort of twisted sexuality as well, and so I remember there was a moment where we're like, yeah, let's do another take on that one.
It's crazy how tone can shift that way when you're not able to see someone's face or body movements. Because in person, I'm like, nah, she ate that. Like, but yeah, over audio is of course very different.
Great. All right, thank you. We'll wrap up and rotate.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you guys.